Today's lesson is called Solving One-Step Inequalities by Adding or Subtracting. So by the end of today's lesson, you'll know how to solve an inequality through either adding on both sides or subtracting on both sides. Now don't write this down, it's just a quick review of what we went over yesterday. Now, yesterday we learned about the 4 different inequalities. Now the first one, we learned about the less than symbol. Remember, when graphing, it's an open circle. We learned about the greater than symbol. When graphing, it's also a circle. We learned about the as less than or equal to symbol. So that means x is either smaller than a value or x is equal to that value, and that's going to be a closed circle. And then we also learned about the greater than or equal to symbol. So x is either bigger than the value or x is equal to that value. And once again, when graphing, it's also going to be a closed circle. Now in your notes, I want the question, is the inequality true as well as 7 is greater than 2? So taking a look at this, we're asking, is 7 greater, or another way of thinking of it is bigger than 2? That's a question, is it? Yes, it is. Since it's bigger, that means that this is a true statement. Now, before we had dealt with 2 is equal to 2. Is this a true statement? This is also a true statement. And I taught you, whatever you did to one side, let's add 4 to one side, you did to the other, and it would still keep a true statement. Now the same exact idea now applies to inequalities. So, if I were to add 2 to this side of the inequality and add 2 to that side, 2 plus 2 is 4, 7 plus 2 is 9, and we bring down our inequality. Now I ask you, is this a true statement? Let's see. Is 9 greater or bigger than 4? That's a question. Is it? Yes, it is. That means that this is a true statement. So we're going to take the same ideas dealing with the equal sign and now apply it to our inequality signs. Whatever you do to one side, you must do the other. Why? Because we want to keep a true statement. So go write down the directions, solve the inequalities below, and graph, and go write down number 1. Don't write down the graph just yet. Now, with number 1, key thing here is don't put an equal sign. We are dealing with an inequality, so don't tell me, oh, x minus 5 is equal to negative 7. That is wrong. We're dealing with inequality. So in your notes, don't put an equal sign. Please put that in your notes right now. So, our goal has not changed. Our goal is still to isolate our x. So what we're going to be doing, we're still going to be doing PEMDAS backwards. So, what do I want to get rid of? I want to get rid of that negative 5, or we're subtracting 5. How to get rid of it? By its opposite. So we add 5 to both sides. When we add 5 to both sides, my x comes down. I have an inequality sign, not an equal sign. My inequality sign is less than, and what's negative 7 plus a positive 5? That's going to give me a negative 2. So remember, the same idea. Whatever I do to one side, I do the other. That concept still applies. Now, don't forget, I have to graph this. So we take a look at my inequality. I have x is less than negative 2. Because it's a less than symbol, I know it has to be an open circle, so I find my negative 2 and I draw my open circle. Now, x is less than, x is smaller, so which way is my arrow going to be going? In the negative direction, in the small direction. So I draw my arrow and I'm good to go. So I've solved it for x and I've done my graph. Now, go right down number 2. So looking at number 2, once again, our goal is to isolate the variable. So how do I do that? By doing the opposite of PEMDAS, so I need to add or subtract first. So since I'm subtracting 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. These disappear, my x comes down, and remember, I'm dealing with an inequality sign. Don't you dare put equal sign, that's the wrong thing. Our inequality is less than or equal to, and negative 6 plus a positive 2 is going to give me a negative 4. So taking a look at my inequality, I have negative 4 is less than or equal to x. Because of my inequality sign, I know it's going to be a closed circle, so I find negative 4 and I draw my closed circle. Now, negative 4 is less than, smaller than x. So if negative 4 is smaller than x, x has to be bigger. So all my values will be going into the positive direction because negative 4 is smaller than x. So I've solved for my inequality and I have graphed it. So those will be my answers. Now, on your own, go ahead and try to solve number 3 and number 4. If you were solving them at home, you should have gotten this answer for your inequalities and this answer for your graphs. Now, don't write this down. So what you're going to be doing is, in your table groups, I want you to go ahead and try to solve this problem. If you were solving this at home, the most weight that the truck can handle is 64,000 pounds. Now, don't write this down, but in your table groups, I want you to go ahead and try to solve this problem. You have to write it as an inequality, then solve it. Now, if you're working at this home, you have the total amount of money, $50. Now, our admission isn't going to change. You're only going to pay admission once. That's why we have $8 all by itself. Now, the thing is, though, we can buy multiple number of DVDs. That's why I've set it up as 12D. Now, I ran out of room here, so I'm going to move it to a new slide. You should have gotten 3 as your answer. So go write down the directions as well as number 1, and now let's go and solve this one. So remember, our goal is still the same, to isolate the variable. How do we do that? By getting rid of all our extra numbers we don't want near it. So how do we undo subtracting 4? I add 4 to both sides. Remember, if to have whatever I do to one side must do the other. Cancels out. So I bring down my x. 16 plus 4 is 20. And remember, we are dealing with an inequality sign. Do not put equal sign. So I know now that 20 is less than x. Now, because of my inequality sign, I know it's going to be an open circle. Now, 20 is less than x. That means x is the bigger number. So which values for x is getting bigger? We're going to go to the right. Now, go and write down number 2 and go and try to solve it. If you were solving at home, you should have gotten this inequality as well as this graph. So now write me a 2-sentence summary. What did you learn today? What did you learn about inequalities? That we can kind of treat them like a regular equations we were solving before. Whatever you do one side, you must do the other. Our goal is still to isolate the variable, and when you have an open circle or a closed circle when graphing.